Thank you. So here we are in the lab, and we're doing some speed sensor testing. So I want to explain something. Here's our engine, obviously. Goes into our transmission. Transition goes out to the drive shaft. Drive shaft goes to the rear axle. So from the rear forward, we got these wheel speed sensors. A lot of times those become the vehicle speed sensors, one of them. And that's actually what your speedometer is going to run off of. But at the front of the drive shaft on the transmission here, you can see this sensor up there. That one in black with the terminal probed into it, that's our output shaft speed sensor. And then over here, a little easier to see, we can see our input shaft speed. So if you zoom out, there you go. So let's describe these for a quick second. We've got crankshaft turning, and then that's going to turn the impeller of the torque converter. Depending on what the torque converter does, the torque converter spinning the fluid will ultimately turn the turbine, and the turbine is splined to this input shaft. So first lesson, comparing crankshaft speed through engine RPM and input shaft speed can tell us what's up with the torque converter. If the engine is spinning, say 1,000 RPMs, and this input shaft speed is 0, it's in a stall condition. So that would mean that the turbine's not turning, right? So if we want to do some diagnosis like that, we could just watch engine speed and input shaft speed. Cool. Then from there, you got input shaft to output shaft, right back here. That's really telling you what's going on in the planetary gear set. So if this transmission was trying to do self-diagnosis, it would look at input shaft to output shaft speed, determine a gear ratio. So like, for example, this is a 5-speed. This in fourth is direct drive. I think that it might be third or fourth, but let's just say it's fourth direct drive. In fourth gear, this speed should be the same as this speed. So if it's slipping, it's going to watch those two and compare and say, hey, in fourth, it should be a 1-to-1 ratio, 1,000 RPMs in, 1,000 RPMs out. And if it's 1,000 in and only 800 out, it would know something's slipping in direct drive, right? So there's an overview of some of the sensors. What this next section is going to be about is we're trying to test this sensor right now. It could have electrical problems, but this sensor also reads a spinning, like a reluctor wheel or, some sort of a toothed wheel. So if we have a problem in the transmission where that toothed wheel is broken, this is going to be the only real way to diagnose it. So what we've done, taken the picoscope, we've connected a ground to a good ground here, and then the wire that would put out the positive signal, we've just probed up into there. You can see the back probe action there. Slipped right in the terminal, no problem. And then we went ahead and set up pico, try to get the glare down. We're DC volts, division 1 milliseconds. We got a range of 0 plus or minus 50 millivolts. And a lot of times with this, you can go in and do a couple things. One, sometimes you can hit this lightning bolt right here, and that'll auto set up. Or otherwise, you can come in here and pick the different menus. So like sensors, for example, right? But this one's, whoops, I didn't mean to change that. This one's pre-set up. Okay, it might be. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to see if the auto setup will work. I accidentally clicked. How we would do that, though, we need to have that sensor start to generate. Right now, it's not generating. So, Andres, start it up, put it in drive, let's get it rolling. That output shaft speed is going to be 0 because it's not moving. But in a second, it's going to start moving. There you go. Once that output shaft speed's moving, that sensor should begin to see a signal. And let's just see if we can cheat it here with the lightning bolt, which is auto setup. Ka-chow! And then there you go. Kind of a nice thing. We're just going to skip that update. So here's our speed. We're not super worried about exactly where it's going up to. It's going up to like 1.5 volts or something, fine. But that's at, what's your speed say? This is 7 miles an hour. Give us about 15. So we're gonna double the speed. There's your doubled speed. All right, good, let off. Pop it in neutral. You're right, so you could see speed back up to 15. Here's like 7. Give me 15. Well, there's stopped, right? He's moving. There you go. All right, good. Pop it in neutral and just let it coast down. All right, so that's a good demo of what a good sensor looks like. If you wanted to closely examine it, you could do spacebar on this Pico, and you could look. If you had a broken tooth, you'd see an issue there. If you had maybe like a crack in the reluctor wheel, you might see a little gap or something funny here. You know, so we can tell it's spinning. The ECU would take these highs and lows and make that into a speed and give you miles per hour. Cool. So we're going to do a similar test on this one, but not on the Pico. We're just going to use live data through the tech stream. All right, so now on this one, like I was saying, we've got engine speed, which is RPM. We've got NT. NT is input shaft speed being spun by the turbine of the torque converter. And then we got vehicle speed that pulls out of that output shaft speed sensor. I'm going to show you something. All right, so we're running right now. So where's engine RPM? Okay, where is it on here? Yeah, here we go. So red is engine RPM. Just you're in park, right? Give us a little rev. There it goes up. Okay. Now what I want you to do is go ahead and put it in drive. Okay, hold the brakes really good. Now what happened to your input shaft speed? It dropped, huh? You notice your input shaft speed is 0 now? Why does that make sense? Yeah, because that's your input shaft though. So if you hit the brakes, it stops the wheels, which stops the drive shaft, but then you put it in gear. So that means your input shaft is being connected to your output shaft through whatever first gear is, right? So that means it just stopped your torque converter turbine. Cool. But your torque converter impeller is still spinning with engine speed, like 600 RPMs or so. It's over there, 660. Now, what if you give it just a little bit of a stall test? Just a little bit. All right. You'll see engine RPM go up. If it'll even let you. Yeah. So you got 1500. Oh, what happened with NT? You didn't hold it firm enough. Hold your brakes good. Okay, good. So that you're stall testing right there. Now, what if you just let off your brakes? What do you think is going to happen to NT? Let's go. Let's see it. All right, so your input shaft is turning now because you let off your brakes a little bit, but also your vehicle speed went up because it's turning the output shaft as well. Kind of fun, huh? Now, what if you were to get it up to maybe like 10? Yeah, you're right. Maybe a little faster. And then pop it in neutral. And then hit the brakes. All right, look, your vehicle speed dropped off, but your NT was still spinning. See that? Your NT is 900 and your engine speed is 950. So your torque converter almost locked up right there. And that was because now you're in neutral, so when you stop the output shaft, it didn't necessarily stop the input shaft. It let your turbine kind of freewheel right there, spin. Okay. This would be really cool. I'm gonna step out for a quick second. It'd be really cool if we could diagnose the transmission for a slip or not, but this is the problem. The input shaft speed is in RPMs and the output shaft speed is in miles per hour. So if you really wanted to calculate that, you'd have to actually look at your radius, pi r squared, or you could even look at like your circumference of the tire and then do the math for the final drive and the differential. And then you could basically dumb that down to like, let's say this is 10 miles an hour of vehicle speed. How many RPMs is that? And then those RPMs you could compare to the input shaft. And if this was direct drive in fourth, you'd be able to put it in fourth and you should have a 1-to-1, 1,000 RPMs in, 1,000 out or whatever. See, but unfortunately, because the output shaft speed is shown in miles an hour, that's going to be a very tough calculation. And so at least you can understand the concept here of how the transmission's diagnosing itself for leaks. Now there's one more thing we're going to try to do. You guys try to get set up for the active test for the torque converter lockup. If we can do torque converter lockup, we should be able to actually stall this out. Right now the engine's running and the wheels are stopped with the brakes. So if we lock up the torque converter and the wheels are stopped, that should stall the engine. So we're going to try that test. All right, so what we're trying to do right here is we're going to have the engine running and stall the engine with the torque converter clutch, but those criteria we didn't meet the criteria, so it's protecting itself. It won't let us actually do that, unfortunately. Here's the conditions. It needed to be moving. It's all right. We're there. We're good. Super fast. All right, try to lock it up. Just go ahead and do it. It tells you no, prohibited response. Okay, so that means we're gonna meet these criteria and then we'll retry it, but it's probably more gonna be like above what speed? It'd say 40 something?
44.
All right, so if we get it above 44, we could graph engine RPM and NT, right? Get only those two, and then you're gonna lock up the torque converter and those should become 1-to-1 if that torque converter clutch is engaged all the way and not slipping. Let's try that test.
Okay, you guys are sturdy.
All right, so unfortunately we couldn't get that Tacoma to get into fifth, so it wouldn't let us do TCC lockup. That one just has some problems. So we're gonna try it on this Camry. So obviously you can't do torque converter lockup when it's stopped. We already tried that.
Yes, sir. It should be connected up.
Think you're ready? So we're active test. A lot of options. It might actually be under transmission specifically.
Wait, why did you go through the engine?
All right, I'm getting into the transmission here. All right, we got a code. It's all right. All right, do you remember which one torque converter is? Oh, lockup solenoid. You also might be able to do SLU as well. All right, try to do it right now.
Stop.
Hit it. Yeah, see, it's mad because you're not probably got to be up to speed and everything. It'd be cool if it would do that because you could stall the vehicle, but unfortunately, no. I think you'll have to get it up to speed.
Is that it? Is that what I'm hearing?
Nah, you're hearing the lift rattle.
But he's trying to control the car.
Do you have it in drive? Okay, it might let you do it now. All right. So when we get it to be active, what should we be looking for? You want to get your engine RPM and your NT, which is your input shaft speed up. Yeah, get those two up and graph them. Graph them. Or you didn't find NT yet?
I didn't find.
I see. Yes. Okay, so the second and third graph, we've got, you can tell they're not locked right now, right? 550 on NT, 650 on engine. So get it up to speed. Cool. All right, kind of maintain that speed right there. See, they're really close. 1200. They're a little. There's a little variation though. 1150. Yeah, just try to keep the speed as steady as you can. Let's say we're at 12. Really steady. 1200, 1150, 1200. You see, they're fairly close. Now what if you go ahead and, let's say, let off? See, it gets mad because you're going too slow.
Shut up the engine.
Did it stall it?
No, it's not small.
Yeah, it killed the test before it could stall it. So you see, it wasn't perfect. What if you get it up to speed again and then you graph them one more time? You don't care if it didn't take air. There you go. Ha. Yeah, there's your NT. Sometimes you can graph them in an overlay too. You ready? So we'll get it up to speed one more time. So engine speed is on top, input shaft speed is on the bottom. All right, see, they're fairly similar anyway because there's not really a lot of load on the engine.
We're not really active.
See, they're fairly close anyway. What if you slightly drag the brakes a little bit? You got to do it 2 feet. See, you got a big number difference right there. Now go ahead and do the lockup at the same time as you messing with them. They should go together if you do that. Although it might stop you from doing it. So that's locked up now, right?
Yeah.
Try to slow it down with your foot.
What?
See, it seems like it's keeping them tighter. Yeah, and then he gets mad. So you can overall tell that the torque converter clutch is locked up. It's a lot more apparent when it's on the road though, because the road will add a lot of resistance and you'll see the NT will not be as close to engine RPM unless you lock it. All right, so I'd like to show you what we're doing here, but I can't because it'll give away the answers. But basically this is a fault box. One of these is going to get connected in and one of them's come out. So like I'll show you what that looks like on the car. Boom. But I'll show you what it looks like. We can actually see the other ends. Let's have a look, see. Okay, so this was going to the transmission, but you're going to bring this down, connect it here, and that's going to basically take all your signals from the ECM and bring them into the box. Then there's a connector that's going to leave the box. Here it is, and this is going to go into the ECM, and that way we can intercept a bunch of signals with the switches and you can do a whole bunch of diagnosis. But then if you were looking at this connector, let's just say, which one's one? You remember? Top left?
Yeah, top left, bottom left.
Oh, bottom left is one?
Yeah.
So that green one is one.
Yeah.
Okay, so that green one's terminal 1. Don't probe there, although Luis is, because I told him to. If this is number 1 in green, forget about that connector. Just test it right here. So if you wanted to test terminal 1 and 2, this is 1 and 2. Don't test it down there. Test it right here. Cool. And then each one of these switches will control a fault. So I'm not going to give you the answers, but your first one's going to be number 1 in this position. And then you're going to get a DTC, check the DTC, look at the data, follow the steps on TechStream, and do your measurements. And if you happen to need to measure around 1, 2, that's where you do it. Don't do it down there. Okay?